And I gotta hear. And I'm the rarest character of the rare character.
That's very true. That's very true. You guys have a nice story and a huge following. So why don't we talk about a little bit about how the brand started and a little bit about yourself.
Yeah, so I've been working in the restaurant industry for 20 years, and I, during COVID, was unsure of what life would be like, and I have a huge investment in bourbon, in particular, all still spirits, but in particular bourbon. I've been a big collector for years. I've been very involved in the community, and I thought this would be a natural transition as a plan B, and it's been working out pretty well so far, I think.
This is where you and I are very similar. I spent 20 years, more than 25 years in corporate world, and then had a foresight about 10 years ago to get into wine and spirits. And during COVID, quit my corporate job, cold turkey, and now doing this full time.
No way.
So, yeah.
Cool.
And this is a passion and a project, much like rare characters for you. And I think when you combine work with passion, that's when the best results actually happen. Anyway, let's talk about rare character for a little bit, because the project itself is very unique in a way that you find best tasting whiskey barrels and then you re-release them under your own label. Or if I'm mistaken, correct me. But tell me about how the brand started.
Yeah, so the concept that rare character being things of unique and rare character, not that it's rare,
yes.
You know what I mean, which a lot of people confuse it with. So the concept was that I find that, or at least it's communicated to me, and I feel sometimes like bourbon is bourbon is bourbon is bourbon, right? It's just kind of like the same. So, and I've been around bourbon for a long time, and I think there's a lot more range within the category. It's hard to find that range, unlike in other categories, because it's so brand focused, and the brands have to hit a certain flavor profile. So like Elijah Craig says Elijah Craig, and this is like this. So it's like, it's a lot of the sameness. So unlike in malt, there's brands, right? There's Macallan, there's this, that. Within that, there's independent bottlers, there's this, and then maybe they finish them, maybe they don't. Maybe they go into a roasted sherry. Maybe they go into ex-bourbon barrels. Maybe they don't do anything. Maybe, some of them, the color's so light, they had no, artificial coloring. So you're like, I don't understand, this is 22 years old and it's like straw colored, right? Like, I don't know, whatever brand you'd see. So, and the person who's doing that, like I am, isn't so concerned with like, how does it look on a shelf? It's more like, hey, this is what I want to put out to the world. I want to put out this thing naturally the way it is. And I thought there was room for that. And as a collector of old whiskey, a common thing on the back bottle, it's referred to as copy. I didn't know that was called, but it would say, da-da-da-da, rare character, my rare character. I've done this thing with rare character. So I was like, oh, rare character, that's what it's called. So, rare character.
Funny story. I had run into your brand completely by accident. I saw an art label. I saw the label of one of the picks that you've done. Well, somebody's done with you. And it looked beautiful to me. And very aesthetic person. I'm like, oh, let me look this company up. And that's how I ended up, in Venice talking to you and doing the picks. I know outside of Rare Character, you have a couple other projects going on. You want to talk about that a little bit?
Yeah, so Rare Character is the parent company. Like, I don't know, like whatever parent companies are for things, like whatever Unilever, and within that there's like Gillette, right? So Rare Character is the parent company. We started with this, what I call the single barrel series, which is kind of like unique lots of barrels. So they've been as small as 3, and the most being, I don't know, I think like 60. And the concept is I find a lot of barrels that I think are really interesting or have a unique story. They themselves tell a story, right? And then what I have to hopefully find is someone else who wants to go along with my story, and then to select them to then bottle them. And then I thought a unique way to market them or to communicate the information was to be a collaborative label. So that was something that was very common in the 90s, and there's a lot of famous barrels today, which if you go on, I don't know, Unicorn auction or whatever auctions, you'll see like the Twisted Spoke 106 proof, whatever, Van Winkle, or the Blue Smoke 18-year Van Winkle, or the Delilah's whatever KBD bottling. So I thought it was a good opportunity to do that. Now it's hard to have everyone design individual labels because it's a design nightmare and it takes forever to do. So me and my partner came up with this concept collaboratively, where we would have like a label that's kind of split, so the bottom half is kind of solid and unchanged, and the top could be anything. And I think it's worked out pretty well. So.
Yeah, and you recently launched Fortuna, which has a nice backstory in and of itself. Like every brand in whiskey, I feel like, has to have a story, right? Sometimes it's more than giving, sometimes it's a lot more than that. I think Fortuna is both of these things. Like it has a rich history, which you guys were able to revive. Want to talk about that a little bit?
Yeah, so with Fortuna, it's always a brand. I have a lot of old Fortuna bottles and a lot of old Glencoe bottles. That was started by a German immigrant family, the Hollenbachs, and something about it has really stuck with me because my parents immigrated from South America, so the word Fortuna translates to English and Spanish very smoothly, like the word taco. Yeah. If you go to Mexico, you swear they're taco, they go taco, taco, right? We all eat taco. So Fortuna moves that smoothly, although they're German. And I've always loved the kind of sheen, it kind of always popped. The Glencoe whiskey is amazing. And it's one of those distilleries that when it went away, it's something that I've always looked for, even like I like a lot of old Seagram's benchmark stuff from Four Roses, which I think kind of get passed over. So it's certain things I gravitate towards, but that one really connected with me a lot. So I thought it'd be really neat to bring that back. That kind of connects with my heritage. It's a Latino, which I'm very proud of. My wife's from Puerto Rico. My house is Spanish speaking. We watch TV with Spanish, dubbed in Spanish, at home. In that particular case, it's a Kentucky straight bourbon. It's a blend. It's my only product right now that I'm blending. So I do it myself. It's 6 to 12 barrels because obviously I'm not the best at blending. When you do it, you kind of do equal parts, on a table, and then when you get there, when you actually do the barrels, it's not exactly the same. So to get it to feel solid and good. So it's my first foray into blending. It's 102 proof, so the only thing I offer, it's not cask strength either. So the only blended product, the only proof down product, but I felt that I needed something that's readily available. Again, not super readily available because I only have so many. For new companies who don't have a huge warehouse for the whiskey, it's you can only do so much. So, for example, for this year, kind of like an insider tip, I'm actually not blending anymore Fortuna 102 proof for the rest of the year. So I'm going to lean in for the second half of the year to do a 7-year barrel proof version. That'll come in also a throwback label, will be all blue versus the silver. And I'm going to lean into that for the second half of this year, and then probably bring Fortuna 102 proof back early part of 24.
Which is a good segue. I was going to say, didn't Fortuna have a rich history? There was a company, there was a brand called Fortuna, right?
Yeah.
With a specific recipe, which you guys basically revived, or as tried to revive.
Yeah, it's blended basically to be historically accurate. Yeah. So I actually have a friend in Louisville. Recently, they got sent some Fortuna and Glencoe samples along with some other things, and then we actually grabbed the bottle of Fortuna, and we actually were at this bar called the Pearl in Germantown with a bunch of us, and we tried it, and everyone felt I was pretty damn close. Well, if you figure back then, the legal barrel entry proof was 107. Today's 125, right? So there's things about it that makes it very challenging to make it exacto, but it's pretty damn close.
All right. Your newest project, Pride of Anderson County, is just exciting. If some people would argue, probably more exciting, just based on the sourcing of these barrels.
Yes.
You're at liberty to talk about any of them.
Yes. So
I don't want to get you in trouble.
No. You can't get me in trouble. So Pride of Anderson County is a collaboration between Rare Character, myself, and then my really dear friend David Jennings. His handle is Rarebird101. He is the I think the foremost authority of wild turkey. He's published 2 books on it. I imagine the 3rd coming. At this point, you know, me being in the whiskey, like, I don't know what else he can talk about. He hasn't talked about, but I'm sure he'll find it. I don't think there's any better way to communicate that history of that whiskey like him. It's something that I feel blessed and fortunate to be a part of. You know what I mean? It was a long time in the making. We decided to go a different route to what, let's say, Single Cask Nation does, where they do the wild turkey stuff. We wanted to go something different, so we decided to create a new brand called Pride of Anderson. It's obviously in Anderson County, so it's the Pride of Anderson County. 4 Roses there also, which I love, so I'm sure it's also the Pride of Anderson County. But it was very important for David as a hardcore wild turkey fan to have a lot of information on the back, so it'll have like the warehouse location, you know, I don't know, the time of day, the temperature. But it's a unique opportunity that was given to us by Campari and Wild Turkey, their brand team, the people at the distillery, to go there and pick barrels, and you know, it's something that I'm pretty excited about.
How to develop a palate? Like, if you had an advice to somebody who's just getting into bourbon, how do you develop a palate? What do you look for in a whiskey?
Great question. So my parents immigrated from South America, as I mentioned to you. They were Colombia and Venezuela. I grew up, you know, very simple, so not a lot of access or means to quality things. I got to discover them working in restaurants, and you know, through my restaurant career, you taste things, right? And honestly, the best way to develop a palate is to taste a lot. I'm talking about like pounding things, but like tasting a lot. So it's like if you really want to understand, I don't know, Grand Champagne Cognac, taste a lot of Grand Champagne Cognac. If you want to understand Petit Champagne Cognac, taste a fuck ton of Petit Champagne Cognac, and then et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, Boideries, moving on. So the same thing within bourbon, you know, start to identify what's now becoming a trend, like sweet mash bourbons, right? So spend a lot of time with sweet mash bourbons, sour mash bourbons. Then you have this weeded bourbon, which there are less of them, but start to chase a lot of those, and so on and so forth. Rye whiskeys, understanding whether they're a 95.5 mash barrel or whatever. And then the more you taste, the more you'll start to like land on. It's interesting because like, unlike malt, where it's kind of broader, you'll start to land on the brands you'll like, but you'll also understand the things you like, right? But I think the more you taste, and tasting doesn't mean getting wasted or being a drunk. It's just like taking a chance, trying something. You know, maybe it's one of the picks that you guys do. Obviously, you put a lot of investment in the things that you do. So trying them, you know, having them in mind. So I haven't had this before. You know, it's worth trying. You know what I mean? Like the more you try, the more you learn, I think.
Yeah, I totally agree. One of the guys that works with us, he's a certified sommelier, and he was working for us even before he got his certification. And the way he went about getting the certification, where our physical location is, right next door, there's a big food supermarket. He would go into that food supermarket and he would literally sniff stuff. He would pick up different fruits, different vegetables, and he would sniff stuff. He would write notes, and then he would try to find the same tasting notes in wines or sometimes in whiskey that he was tasting. And that's how he, you know, grew his palate, and that's how he developed his palate. And right now, he's probably one of the best guys that ever has written tasting notes for us. And a testament to that is every time we launch something, the guys get the barrel, they get the bottles, and they're like, "Oh, those tasting notes were right on point." And that's how you do it, because you just have a plethora of experiences, whether you're tasting a lot of bottles or you have some other experiences in your life that expose you to different foods, different cultures. I think that's the best way that's the best way to develop a palate.
Well, that's the thing. Taste is personal, right?
Yeah.
Well, even texture, right? So some people hate tomatoes. When you pop them, they hate that feeling, right? Some people hate avocados. I love avocados. That's crazy. But I don't care for mayonnaise. So you'll love mayonnaise, right? So that's the thing. So it's hard to be like, this is amazing. It's to you, right? So someone else might find it less amazing. It doesn't mean it's not good. There's a textural component they're not enjoying. It might be the proof they're not enjoying. It might be the spice level. It might not feel as sweet. It might not feel as smooth. So it's like it's hard because like yourself, like me, I'm trying to put out things that I think have universal deliciousness, right? That's as I call it. So universal deliciousness, and you try to find that within your community, right? I hear something that I feel like everyone within my community is really going to enjoy. So as long as like that is your, I don't know, my mission and your mission, and our things like, hey, here's something that I think that everyone within my community, for the most part, it'll only land at 90% because there's still 10% to be like, it's like tomatoes. I hate that texture, and I love tomatoes. You know what I mean? But that's the hard thing about taste. It's personal, and it's challenging.
I'll tell you this: running a single barrel club is very challenging in the way that every year we do a end of year survey where I ask people, what were your favorite picks of the year? What did you not care for? Right? Someone's treasure is always someone else's trash, and vice versa. Like, so it's really difficult. It's very subjective. But there are traits behind every bourbon, every rye, every whiskey expression that you kind of look for. Which kind of brings me to our specific selections with you. So the first two, I know this is a story I've told many times to the members, but never on camera. I remember coming here, and you tasted me blind on some of your stuff, right next to Old Forester. I think it was Birthday Bourbon. I think the bourbon that we actually picked was
Birthday Bourbon 1920.
And 1920, correct. And
I remember.
It gave those two bottles around the third month. And it tasted amazing, which is why we picked it. And some of the members that bought it are swearing by that this is one of the best bottles they ever had. The rye was tasted right next to, I think it was Willet, if I don't recall.
Maybe,
yeah, I think it was like a 4-year Willet, maybe like an 8-year Willet, I don't remember. But I think it was a Willet bottle. And again, it was just as good, if not better. And we bought that one, and that sold through very quickly. So your brand achieved something that a lot of people in craft, I don't want to call you craft, but a lot of brands are striving to achieve, if you know status, where you have loyal followers and supporters, and they'll look for specific things from the brand. And I think you guys have done that, and the testament to that is the Kentucky rye that we selected from you was gone in less than a week. It was sold out pretty quickly, which is why I'm here again, selecting yet another barrel. And this one again, it doesn't really focus on this thing, but this one is going to be an Amburana finished rye. We've done Amburana bourbon, which is still to be released from somebody else, but never Amburana rye. Today, I'm tasting it with.
Yo,
Brandon.
Brandon, you're on camera.
I'm texting the club members right now. The club members are asking me questions.
Oh, you were on camera texting
right.
Club members.
It's okay. What I was going to say is, and this is my first foray into Amburana rye. I kind of feel like Amburana agrees more with rye than it does with bourbon. Would you agree with that?
That's a personal opinion you have,
100%.
and it's a personal opinion I have, which is why I've leaned into it so much. As I was mentioning earlier, and I'll tell everyone for the first time,
Yes.
I've done one bourbon, which I enjoyed. I've done two 95.5 ryes, which I thought were very nice. But the barely legal Kentucky style 51 to 53% rye, mostly corn and some malted barley, obviously, whether it's 4 to 5 to whatever, 12%, for me is ideal to kind of counterbalance. I feel like it needs the corn and sweetness to kind of combo in there,
Yep.
but also it needs that, there's a dry, I don't know, quality that the rye brings in that kind of tones down. Amburana is naturally sweet.
Yes.
So that's the thing, it's like, I don't know, it's like, it was years ago, people thought it was crazy. Like, oh, people put salt on ice cream. Why? It's insane, or whatever, salt in desserts, right? It needs, or it needs acid, or it needs whatever. So in this case, it needs acid. I mean, I come from a restaurant background. I've been working in restaurants for 20 plus years. So to me, it needs acid or it needs salt. Like, what's wrong with this thing? It needs salt. So in this case, it needs salt.
I couldn't agree more. I think we picked a winner, so just to give people a little bit of a background, we tasted four different samples, 4 different samples.
You tasted one that already got released that got sold out in 3 minutes.
But I still
You
like
tasted-
better.
Yeah, you tasted the finished product in a bottle.
Yeah.
You did 3 samples that were stored in an indoor
Correct.
climate, and 1 barrel that literally sat outside.
Okay.
Like, and the concept was years ago. This is like, I don't know, it's like in 2011, I went to Buffalo Trace at the Warehouse X, the outside. So I thought, oh, what would be like if I throw them outside? So I literally threw barrels outside. That's my warehouse X. I don't have the warehouse, but I have the X factor outside.
And that's a great experiment. And again, that speaks to my earlier point about you trying different things with it, where most people probably wouldn't. Anyway, so the Prime Barrel folks can look for it when?
I would say, depending on the amazing artwork that you guys are so known for, we just started May, right? Just started. So probably a couple months, tops.
Oh, okay.
Tops.
Soon. Okay.
Well, unless you don't want it soon.
Well, we'll talk about this offline. We'll figure it out. But the point is, this is one amazing whiskey, which is going to go nice with the Amburana bourbon whiskey that we selected from Starlight.
Oh yeah, they're great.
Yeah, they're great. This is going to be rye. And people ask me, how's that different? Well, one is bourbon, one's rye. And there couldn't be more different. First of all, that's another thing that is, I'm going to give you flowers. A lot of people don't know that Amburana barrels are very expensive. And people tend to refill them. You don't, right? You only do
This is first fill.
This is first fill. Okay. Which has the most, obviously, most flavor. I'm looking forward to continuing this relationship. I think this has been very fruitful, at least for us.
Thank you. So nice of you.
It doesn't hurt that you're local, and we can always drop by and that was announced. I appreciate your time. Anything else you want to say?
No, thanks for anyone that's listening all the way through. That's very flattered.